Hey everyone, so it's only been a couple of days, but I got a lot done on our Voxel framework. So let's take a look at what has been changed. Some of it is indeed facing the user, so it's user facing, and some of it is just the underlying technology to facilitate distribution and to facilitate further development on this. So as you can see, first off, the grid is bigger. It's now 13 by 13, lucky number. So I decided that 9 by 9 was just too constraining. So I just added a couple more rows and columns. Next, can't really prove it, but now overbuilding is prevented. So as I mentioned before, you could actually build outwards beyond the grid. So even though I'm clicking, it is not building. There's simply a script that is attached to every object that was already there. I just added to that script and it said if the x coordinate is out a certain bound, so beyond a certain range, or if the z coordinate is beyond a certain range, then to auto delete. So technically you can still keep building vertically this way, but you can no longer overbuild this way or on the sides either. So the four directions you can now no longer overbuild. I'm thinking about maybe adding an option that says overbuild yes or no. It'd just be a toggle, but for now overbuilding has now been prohibited. So larger grid, no more overbuilding. Let's look at the buttons. As you can see, the check mark is now working properly. This was actually very easy to do. So all I did is for each button, I created a separate UI image object and simply had the same image as the source for that UI object. So right now you are actually looking at the button with that cube image. You are now actually looking at the image beneath it. So it's exactly the same image. So it's a little bit of a trick. A few of these aren't quite lined up 100%, so you might see the image shift slightly. But that's what's going on is you're actually seeing a separate UI image now with the button image as a check mark. So that works now. So I'm glad that I was able to get that working. And like I said, that was much easier than I thought it would be. So continuing on with the buttons, we now have some new objects. So we now have a frame. And again, you can see that it does indeed build out in all directions. And we have a cap. Now, the only thing about this one, it's not a big deal, but as you can see, it's not the full height like the other ones. But since the intention is not to let you build on top of that anyways, then I'll probably leave it. So that's the first one that doesn't actually, it isn't actually fully constrained to the 1 by 1 by 1 parameters. But again, not building on top of it I don't think it's really a big deal. Okay, so and that too can build around. Again, like I said, the code just automatically does that for you because of the way I designed it in the first place. So certain things I had to uproot, that is one of the things that I did not. That's actually worked right along, fortunately. Okay, so as far as stuff that's under the hood that isn't user-facing, I have removed Pro Builder. So this is no longer dependent upon Pro Builder. Like I said, I believe that there are certain prohibitions when it comes to distributing those add-ons because I've noticed numerous times when I've downloaded packages, it's like there are dependencies. Do you want to install these additional assets, these additional mods, these packages. So I really don't want to be in that situation. I'd rather have this be just a clean install because people might not want those additional assets installed in their computer or in their project rather. So what I did is I removed Pro Builder and the blocks, all these shapes, these are simply made in an external 3D modeler and then imported into this application. So at this point, since I've uprooted all that and did some recoding, because the other thing that I did was the ground. As I mentioned, the ground truly weren't tiles. They were actually blocks. They've now been replaced by tiles. And so I had to do some recoding because the position of an object is relative to what you're clicking on. Anyways, and you can just see a little bit of it's not really a glitch, but the focus stays here. So until you click away, what happens is if you're moving the camera, like you're using the up, down, left, right buttons, you'll notice this is moving too. Now it's not doing it now because I clicked away, but if I click here, so now it's proving me a liar. There we go. So I believe what happens is the focus is staying there. At least that's the term they use when concerning like databases and forms and things like that. They say that something has the focus. So if a cursor is like flickering in a text box, well, that has the focus. If a button has like a highlight around it, well, that has the focus. So it's like as if the button still has the focus there, and so it keeps moving. And like sometimes I'll see that as I'm rotating around, you'll see the colors moving around here. So I'm not sure if it's something to really worry about. It probably can be a little bit off-putting. So a little bit of a bug, but not a big deal. But again, I think it's just a matter of having the object lose the focus. Okay, so I think that's just about it. All the shapes, as I said, as they were these were designed to scale. So it looks like I don't have the delete all script on that yet. That's fine, but these should still work as well as with the new shapes. You can see I suddenly saw the focus moving, the selector moving around the colors there. So yeah, this all still works, and now it works the shape. Again, because the way this was designed, it's simply saying use whatever the current shape is. So no matter how many shapes you add, it just works. I hate using that expression actually because that's something that Bethesda tends to say, and then things don't work. So, but in this case, it did scale very well. It was probably one of the better decisions that I made. Okay, so larger grid can no longer overbuild. The check marks work. Two new shapes. The tiles are truly tiles now. Pro Builder has been removed. So the last thing to do, and like I said, I still haven't done a deep dive. I plan on just doing like one video, like one long video once I release this. But I started to do a little bit of code optimization or at least reduction. So obviously this hasn't been touched here, but okay, so here's the line 9 function. In other words, if you click on the button that says line 9, there used to be 8 boxes drawn individually, each with its own instantiate command. The only reason why it's 8 instead of 9 is because when you first click, it automatically draws the first one. And then it looks to see, okay, if there's a shape, draw the rest. So rather than having 8 instantiate commands, it's now just one instantiate command. This checks for that first block, or really should I say, avoids the first block that has already been put there. And here are the endpoints. So what this does now, and I mentioned this in the previous video, is, like I said, this is an iterative process. Now that this has been done, what you could do is you could have just a single a function for all the lines. So you could combine this and this. So rather than having line 5 and line 9, when you click on line 5 or line 9, it sets values to a couple of variables, and those variables would then be put here. So you would no longer have to have hard-coded functions for each and every shape. You could consolidate the shapes because you'd know what the endpoints are now. So you could go to line 11 and line 13, line whatever. I did that a little bit with one of the triangles too. So triangle 9 here, this is the bottom line. So that's the bottom of the triangle, and the base, whatever the proper term is. And again, rather than having, I believe there were 9 or 11, looks like there's 12, 12 blocks. So rather than having 12 instantiates, it's been reduced to just 2 lines of code. So I've begun to do that simplification of code. And we'll see how much I do before I release this, because obviously you don't want to have to stare at a wall of text. We want to try to make this a little bit easier for you guys. So I think that's about it. So a lot done. And like I said, now that we've removed Pro Builder. We no longer have those dependencies, so I think that this is just about ready to be released. And like I said, it'll be on itch.io, and the project itself will be free. If you wish to give a tip, you certainly can, but I'll set the default value to 0. I do believe that this is probably the project that I'm the most proud of. This is the first time that I've really worked on a utility rather than a game, and I do feel that this has the potential to, at least for some developers, help them. People who don't want to have to learn Blender, don't have to want to learn something very technical, that this has a much more I don't want to say intuitive, but it's less technical. You're not messing around with vertices and edges and facings, that you're just building. And again, the idea is not original. As I've said, there's at least 2 others that I can think of. There's Magica Voxel, which takes the block approach, so we do more than just blocks. And then you have the Asset Forge, which is kit bashing, and that is, you have all these. They're beyond primitives. They're actually like, this looks like the nose of a plane. This looks like the wheel of a car. So they go beyond primitives, and you're basically putting them together. So I don't plan on going to that extreme. Definitely closer to Magical Voxel than Asset Forge. And there's a few more things I can do. I was thinking about it, and one of the options that we don't have yet, we do not have the ability to load like a pre-made project that we've made and then that the end user has access to. Because again, using Magica Voxel as a comparison, there are many pre-made projects that you can just load in, and then you can make something derivative of that. So that might be something that we want to do. That is something I personally wouldn't do. I think that's the kind of nuance that you guys could add if any of you so choose to pick up the torch and carry this on. Okay, so I think that's about it. I believe I mentioned the pencil tool in the last one, so that's now like a free drawer. I didn't make any changes there. That still works the same. So, okay, so I hope that you found this useful. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. And if there's any other features you'd like to see, but like I said, I think I'm about ready to let this one out into the wild, and then you guys can do whatever you want with it. So please enjoy the rest of your day.